Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. Welcome to the first full week of January in 2025, our 9-year, which I will talk more about when I do the podcast specifically about 2025 and its other meanings beyond astrology and sort of an overview of what we can expect this year. But to focus on the week of the 6th, and please be mindful that the times I give are Eastern time, so you may have to adjust that. But this week begins with I guess we're in this sort of reckoning time, which happens with the Mars retrograde, because Mars goes back into the sign of Cancer as of 5:44 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday the 6th. And what's happening then is when Mars is in backward motion from our perspective, basically we're being asked to delay, reflect, and slow down. Now, slow down is not really a happy place for Mars. Mars is the planet that symbolizes how we assert ourselves, go forward, express our libido, desire, what we're going for, anger. And so when it's retrograde, we have a tendency, depending also on our personal horoscope, what that means for us, but many of us can have a tendency to implode, like the information goes inside. And that is not comfortable, obviously. A healthy expression of Mars is to know what it is you want to obtain, go for, make happen in this lifetime. Understand when you're angry, how to express that in a way that is non-reactive, but with the appropriate force or assertion that's necessary to, in a healthy way, move that anger to a point of resolution. And when it's retrograde, in this case in the sign of Cancer, it may be bringing up for many of us things that have to do with family grievances. Cancer is a sign that is linked to the hearth, the family of origin, where we came from, our roots. And if you have any unsettled business with that, dysfunction or things that have never been able to be expressed, either because the people to whom you would express them will not receive that information or they are no longer available, then the healthiest way to use this period of time, if you feel that coming up, is to analyze it and understand it. And so Mars will be retrograde in the sign of Cancer for a bit of time. As it opens in the week of the 6th, many of us, some of us, may feel ourselves pushing against or having some kickback, especially for many of us. We're coming off holidays, probably a lot of time spent with family. So there's that reflective opportunity to consider what went on. Was it something we were able to deal with or understand in healthy ways? And if not, how do we do this now? So, this week is a great time to process that. Not necessarily the warmest and fuzziest thing to go through, but it certainly is well supported by the waxing moon cycle. And it's allowing many of us to see things in different light. Monday also has an auspicious configuration with the planet Jupiter, basically supporting or buoying up that push forward. And understand this: the moon is in the sign of Aries, and Aries is one of the signs linked to the planet Mars. So there can be an impatience about how this is unfolding. If you're feeling that impatience directed towards someone, including yourself, ideally find healthy ways to burn off steam with it. It's really the best way to make this happen. And totally appropriate to recognize, validate, either talk to a friend, write it out in a therapeutic situation, whatever makes sense, to just energetically move it so that you feel that release. And it can be very positive. It's just a matter of working with it consciously rather than having it kind of kick you in the pants. And this continues into the 7th, Tuesday, when tempers for some of us may get very short, especially in the afternoon, especially if you're feeling the friction of what I've just described. And sometimes, as many of us know, it's not even in direct line to what the real issue, grievance, problem, historic aggravation is. It's more, this person in a store really irritated me, this guy at work wasn't being cooperative. Whatever it is, give yourself the grace to work at understanding where it comes from. And if it's not you, because it may not be you, it may be someone you're working with or interfacing with or trying to understand. The most important piece here is to allow the, as I said, letting off the steam, whatever it is, but in a healthy way. That's the ideal. Work it out on a ball court, put it into art, express it in a way that makes sense in some sort of activity that is not destructive. That is the best way to use this power, because it is a power. And we want to understand it and be informed by it and use it in a way that helps us be effective instead of having it kind of kick us or have us feel defeated or as though we were working with something way too intense for us to really navigate or understand. On Tuesday, the 7th, the moon goes forward, of course, at 4:16 p.m. And this is when many of us may notice, this is feeling less fired up and intense. And so as we get into early evening, we can be feeling more as though, let me settle down, focus, carve up some vegetables, make a sustaining meal, break bread with friends, have conversations that make sense. This is especially effective, again, if we understand what is powering us or working Well, ideally with us, but it can feel what it feels like energetically to me, especially as I'm looking early in the week, as though you're handling some machinery that really requires focus to understand. So thinking back in my youth, learning how to work with a power saw. I mean, for some people, it might be understanding how to ride a motorcycle. I mean, whatever it is, where you're working with something that requires full concentration so that you're navigating that well and you're not getting thrown by it. It's not dissimilar to doing some form of exercise, perhaps weight building or Pilates or something that really requires focus as you're going through the steps of it, because if you don't focus, then it's as though the weight of the thing or the power of the thing feels insurmountable, because it's important to understand what muscles you have to work and use in order to move that, whatever it may be. And so that's what's happening with this Mars activity. And also, again, I'm looking at Pluto on Tuesday, which is the higher octave of Mars. So this is so much about really paying attention to what's under the surface. And if it feels too big to power up or utilize safely, then give yourself some distance from it, however that may happen. Take a walk, um, open windows, get some air in the room, do things that lower the intensity, because that's the way to handle it instead of ignoring it. Ignoring it is not going to work. So the moon enters Taurus at 5:11 p.m. on Tuesday, and this sets up a what could be a very nice evening, especially if, as I said, you give yourself a little step away if that's necessary, or read the room and don't don't go in denial if somebody's looking like they're ready to bite somebody's head off. Just do what's necessary to bring down the temperature. Really, really important. And then a pleasant evening can be had by all, especially as we get into the later evening. Wednesday, the 8th, really good day. Good day for supporting everything I talked about earlier in the week, so that you feel like you're on track, you're paying attention, things are moving along. One thing about the moon being in Taurus after this kind of intense opening days of the week is that it's very supportive for rebuilding whatever might need to be rebuilt from what I was talking about. If there were historic issues or feelings of not being heard, or whatever the residual or old story is, we want to create good foundations for the new story, or the story that we are modifying. There's a lot of discussion in especially programs or processes which are about reinforming if we've come through a really difficult or traumatic or lack of validation childhood experience, situation. There are so many ways that someone can feel stripped down and need to rebuild, to build confidence, to feel they have a voice, to feel they deserve, all those things. And so this week actually gives a lot of support to that when we consciously work with it. So what I'm not going to like generically recommend what someone should do if they're feeling this kind of raw need to rebuild, but I I will say that with the moon in Taurus and how it's aspected as I'm looking at Wednesday into Thursday, this is a terrific time to say, okay, so what makes me feel supported, anchored, and gives me a sense of peace and security? And for some people, it's, hey, that wall needs to be another color, or I have to have a certain layout in this room to help me feel like it's solid and supporting me, whatever it may be. And I'm not saying, do a whole makeover on your home, but it can be very simple. I want to sit in this chair. I want to gaze at this garden. I want to tell the dog to be quiet. Or even better, I want to cuddle with my dog. I want to give myself some restorative rest. Mars retrograde in the sign of Cancer, can't emphasize enough how over the next few weeks, actually, and beyond, the deliciousness of restorative time is good. Self-nurturing, huge. And so with that moon in Taurus midweek, that's kind of what it's asking us to find time with. I mean, holidays can be all blown out and lots going on. And as we're entering and into this second week in January, we are reinforming ourselves about how we are doing life as we go forward into 2025 and beyond. And so it can't be emphasized enough to self-nurture, restorative time, and get those kind of life embraces that give you a sense of feeling secure, validated, and firmly anchored where you are and where you're going. When I look at Thursday from the morning into actually early evening, this is super time for creativity, for coming up with solutions for things that need to be solved, and just those connections that feel very good to you. Excellent time for that. The moon goes void, of course, at 5:50 p.m. on Thursday, and then it enters Gemini at 8:07 p.m. Once it enters the sign of Gemini, very different energetically than this Taurus midweek I was talking about. What's going on is that we can feel as though, wow, there's a lot of channels screaming for our attention, and what do we pay attention to? So that's the other reason why the anchoring is so important on Wednesday, Thursday, because as we get into Thursday evening, where really the demands are increasing for us to respond, engage, get activated. And so a lot of verbal exchange, communications, computer stuff. The thing that is important to keep in mind the evening of Thursday, Friday, and into early evening on Saturday is that there can be mixed messages and confusion. There can also be like good stuff that's coming through, opportunities, especially I see that emphasized on Friday. So here's the thing to pay attention to. Sometimes what occurs is, oh, this really good thing. I got this invitation. This is coming through. I'm finally hearing from the client or the company that I've been wanting to work with. The important thing is to not let that get lost in all the other stuff that's coming in. And we want to be really clear and not distracted about what that message, opportunity, possibility is that came in. And it could just be a very subtle lead, or it could be something that is rock solid concrete. Again, this is going to depend on your personal horoscope, but, and it might be that you hear something for somebody else. I mean, one way this could play out is, let's say you have a friend who's looking for another job or another living situation. That kind of thing can come in. And so it's really valuable to sift through the noise so that you get to the heart of what that piece is. This is something that happens so often in our digital world. And certainly it could happen in the old days when somebody gave a person a business card and you couldn't remember what pocket you put it in or if you lost it. Nowadays, it can be you put in an alarm or a note to yourself or a reminder, and in fast movement, it gets lost or forgotten. And this is the subtle difference between Mars retrograde and Mercury retrograde, which a lot of people hear a lot about Mercury retrograde because, well, it happens 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the year, whereas Mars is retrograde every other year, roughly. And so we may not emphasize it as much, but it really is a factor when it comes to something like how efficiently or effectively am I doing something that I want follow through with. Because if Mars, again, is how we assert ourselves, express our desire, go after what we want, so something occurs, you hear something, oh yeah, I've been wanting to talk to him. So he's in town. So it's important to take a moment and catalog that. Well, when is he available? What would be a good time? How do how could I best connect with him? These are things that you want to slow down, Mars retrograde, to put in place so when the opportunity comes up or when the right day or time is, you're able to act on that, capture it. Really important to do. And it may feel, what's the word I want, especially on Friday? It may feel a little clunky or, I don't want to have to take a moment or put this in my phone or figure out a way to make this more concrete, but it's really valuable to do that. And as the evening goes on Friday evening, responsibilities may build up. So another image that comes in my mind is One's had people over, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot going on, and the kitchen needs to be dealt with, or tomorrow's not going to be fun. And you want to kind of push into that extra step of clearing the counters and doing what you need to do, because Saturday brings the sort of energy that really is much more, what's the word now? What much more effective, or things are able to pan out and get done if we have clean counters, if the boards are clear, if we're just not looking at a room of confusion. A room of confusion on Saturday is probably going to create more confusion. So if there's a way to avoid that, I recommend you put that in place, because it may end up happening anyway on Saturday. It's kind of like somebody who lives in the house with young children. It's like, okay, you straighten everything up, and the next day chaos ensues again. Well, okay, chaos is going to ensue, but it's better the night before if you start out knowing where everything is, so that when that happens on Saturday, you have more of an orientation of where things are for how to make the day work as it needs to. Overall, Saturday can be a lot of fun. It just really works better if you tamp down potential for confusion, mixed signals, information that is not what it seems. The moon goes void, of course, at 7:03 p.m. Saturday night, and it doesn't enter Cancer until 11:24 p.m. So that evening just looks really fun for talking, social engagement, doing things that are playful, but don't expect anything to have a follow through or tenacity, because it won't. It can be a good evening for clearing things up, getting things in order for the next day. Once the moon has entered Cancer in the evening, then it's moving towards the full moon that will happen on Monday. And the thing about this energy is that it's very strong for intuitively going with what's going to give you a sense of resolution and completion. So if we reflect back on what I was talking about earlier in the week, where some of us might want to look at stuff that comes up, gets in our way, gnaws at us, old grievances. If we've done our due diligence over the week, as we're heading towards this full moon, Sunday looks absolutely super for feeling a great sense of resolution with things. I'm not saying everybody's going to be a Hallmark movie on Sunday, but there can be a sense of, this isn't feeling as heavy. This isn't feeling as uphill for me. I'm okay that he says that when I say this, and it's fine. It's good. And I'm just enjoying where I am in space and looking forward to how I can continue to move energetically in ways that don't trip me up as much as they have in the past. Again, this is a life journey for many of us. We go through these epiphanies and feel really great. And then it's like sometime later it's, oh, so I guess I have to deal with that too. But it can be a really lovely week for pushing through some old emotional stuff and getting a bit liberated from it. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.